The rain fell in forks the way it always did, relentless, gray, and cold enough to keep humans indoors. Edward Cullens stood at the edge of the Forks High School parking lot watching Bella Swan fumble with her truck keys, when something made him stop breathing. Not her heartbeat, not her scent. Something else entirely. A figure walked down the center of the road, bald head, yellow suit with a white cape, red gloves, boots splashing through puddles without urgency. The man moved like someone who'd never considered the concept of danger, his face blank with an expression Edward had seen on ancient vampires who'd forgotten what fear tasted like. Edward focused, reaching for the man's thoughts. Nothing. Not the disciplined silence of a vampire shield, not the chaotic buzz of human consciousness, not even the instinctive animal awareness of the Quileute wolves, just absence. A void where a mind should be. The man in yellow stopped at the crosswalk, waited for the light to change, despite no cars approaching, then continued toward the grocery store. Edward's phone vibrated. Alice, don't follow him. I can't see him. He's a blank space in everything. Edward's jaw tightened. In 100 years of existence, he'd encountered mental shields, but this was different. The man wasn't blocking him. It was as if his thoughts existed in a frequency Edward's gift couldn't perceive. Across town, Carlisle Cullens stood in his office at Forks Hospital, reviewing patient charts when his phone rang. Alice's voice came through tight with concern. Family meeting. Now. Something's in Forks and I don't know what it is. By evening, the Cullens gathered in their glass-walled home, rain drumming against the windows. Emmett lounged on the leather sofa, Rosalie beside him with her arms crossed. Jasper stood near the bookshelf, his gift already sampling the room's anxiety. Esme hovered near Carlisle, and Alice perched on the arm of a chair, her face troubled. Edward relayed what he'd encountered. Human appearance but wrong, no scent, no readable thoughts. Moving through town like he owns it, but without awareness. You're sure he's not one of us? Carlisle asked. His heart beats, Edward said. I heard it. Slow, steady. Not human fast, but present. Alice shook her head. Every decision path involving him ends in static. It's like he doesn't have a future, or his future is so absolute that no variables exist. Jasper frowned. I felt something when he passed the school. Not emotion exactly, just emptiness, contentment born from complete disinterest. Rosalie leaned forward. So we have an unknown entity wandering Forks, and our two best reconnaissance gifts are useless. Fantastic. I'll approach him, Carlisle said. If he's dangerous, we need to understand the threat. If he's simply passing through. He rented an apartment, Alice interrupted. Above the hardware store on First Street, paid 6 months up front in cash. The room fell silent. Emmett grinned. So Mystery Man's staying. This should be interesting. Edward met his brother's eyes. Interesting isn't the word I'd use. If the Volturi hear about something we can't identify, can't predict, and can't read. He didn't need to finish. They all understood. The Volturi's authority rested on absolute information superiority. Aro's gift, combined with Alice's visions and Edward's telepathy, had made them untouchable for 3,000 years. An unknown variable wasn't just dangerous. It was heresy. The man in the yellow suit, Saitama according to the rental agreement Carlisle glimpsed later, stood in his new apartment staring at the empty rooms with the same blank expression he'd worn while walking through rain. Huh, he said to no one. Guess this isn't my apartment. He pulled out his phone. No signal. He checked his Hero registry app. No connection. He looked out the window at the endless gray drizzle and evergreen trees. Must be really far from Z City, he muttered. His stomach growled. Saitama patted his pockets, found some local currency he'd somehow acquired, he didn't remember where, and headed back out into the rain. The grocery store was still open. He needed kelp, eggs, and whatever passed for a sale on meat. Behind him, in the shadows of the tree line, 3 pairs of golden eyes watched. Edward stood with Carlyle and Jasper perfectly still. "His heartbeat never changes," Jasper whispered. "No adrenaline spike, no fight or flight. He's not aware we're here." "Or he doesn't consider us a threat," Carlyle said quietly. Edward focused harder, pressing against the void where thoughts should be. Nothing. But something about the man's casual gait, the way he moved through the world with absolute security, triggered an instinct Edward had learned to trust over a century of survival. This wasn't a human pretending to be brave. This was something that had forgotten what predators were. "We keep watching," Carlyle decided, "and no contact. Yet. If he's truly unaware of us, we maintain the advantage." They didn't know it yet, but in the grocery store, Saitama was discovering that Washington kelp was inferior to Z-City kelp, and this bothered him far more than the 3 vampires tracking his movements. "Hey," he said, dropping it in his basket anyway. "It'll be fine." 3 miles south, on the Quileute reservation, Sam Yulee stopped mid-stride during patrol. The wolf inside him snarled at something it couldn't identify. A scent that wasn't scent, a presence that registered as wrongness without specific threat. "What is that?" Jared's voice echoed through the pack mind. "I don't know," Sam admitted, "but it doesn't belong here. The treaty with the Cullens was clear. Vampires stayed off Quileute land, and the wolves wouldn't expose them. But this wasn't vampire. The cold ones carried death and venom. This presence carried nothing. It simply existed, absolute and undefined." "Do we tell the Cullens?" Paul asked, aggression already rising. "Not yet," Sam decided. "We watch. If it crosses the boundary line, we act." The pack continued their patrol, but unease rippled through their shared consciousness. Something had entered their territory's sphere of awareness, and every instinct they possessed screamed that the natural order had been violated. They just didn't know how right they were. In Denali, Alaska, Tanya Denali answered her phone on the second ring. "Carlyle," she said warmly, "it's been too long." "Tanya, I need information." His voice carried an edge she rarely heard. "Have you encountered anything in your territory that registers as neither human, vampire, nor shapeshifter? Something that exists outside normal supernatural classification?" Silence stretched between them. "No," she said slowly, "but Laurent mentioned something before he left for Washington. He'd heard rumors from the Southern Covens, whispers of something walking through South America that destroyed a newborn army in Brazil, not fighting them, just walking through them. They shattered on contact." Carlyle's breath caught. Walking through them? Laurent thought it was exaggeration, a myth to scare newborns into better behavior. When did he leave for Washington? 3 days ago. "Carlyle, what's happening?" But Carlyle had already ended the call, his golden eyes fixed on Edward. "Laurent's coming," Edward confirmed, his gift picking up his father's thoughts. "And if he encounters this Saitama first..." Rosalie stood abruptly. "Then we have bigger problems than an unknown entity in Forks. We have a nomad who'll spread word to every vampire in North America that something unkillable is walking around the Pacific Northwest." Emmett cracked his knuckles. "So we find Laurent first." But in the grocery store, Saitama had already moved on to the produce section, completely unaware that his presence had just set 3 supernatural factions on a collision course that would reshape the hidden world's entire power structure. He picked up a cabbage, examined it, then put it in his basket. "Hey," he said again, "it'll be fine." It would not be fine. Carlyle Cullen had faced the Volturi. negotiated with werewolf packs, and survived 3 centuries of immortal existence through careful diplomacy and cautious observation. None of that prepared him for the absolute mundanity of watching Saitama buy groceries. The man moved through the store with the efficiency of someone who'd perfected the art of shopping sales. He compared prices on canned goods. He checked expiration dates on discount meat. He spent 45 seconds staring at 2 different brands of eggs before choosing the cheaper option. Edward stood beside Carlyle in the parking lot, both of them perfectly still in the shadows. He's thinking about nothing. There's just nothing there. It's like watching a recording. His heartbeat is steady, Carlyle murmured. Approximately 40 beats per minute. That's bradycardia in humans, athletic but not impossible. Look at his muscle structure, Edward said. No definition. He moves like Emmett, but he looks like an accountant who's never seen a gym. Inside, Saitama reached the checkout counter. The teenage cashier, Emily Brennan, Edward identified from her thoughts, smiled nervously. Find everything okay? Yep. Will this be cash or cash? The transaction completed in under 30 seconds. Saitama gathered his bags, 4 of them, carried in one hand without visible effort, and walked toward the exit. Carlyle and Edward melted into deeper shadows as he passed within 10 feet of their position. The void in Edward's telepathic range moved like a black hole, consuming awareness rather than radiating it. Then Saitama stopped. Both vampires froze. Saitama tilted his head, staring directly at the shadows where they stood. His expression didn't change, the same bored, slightly tired look he'd worn since arriving in Forks. He shifted his grocery bags to his other hand. Huh, he said. Thought I saw something. Edward held his breath unnecessarily, every instinct screaming danger despite no hostile action. Beside him, Carlyle remained perfectly motionless. Saitama shrugged and continued walking. They waited 5 full minutes before moving. He saw us, Edward whispered. Impossible. We made no sound, no movement. He saw us, Carlyle, or sensed us, and he didn't care. The Cullen house that night felt smaller than usual, tension pressing against the glass walls like the rain outside. Emmett paced while Rosalie watched him with narrowed eyes. Jasper sat rigid, managing the room's emotional overflow. Alice sketched blankly in a notebook, trying to force a vision that wouldn't come. Esme set down her tea. Perhaps we're overreacting. He could simply be a gifted human. Gifted humans have thoughts, Edward interrupted. Bella's mind is silent to me, but she's there. This man is absence. When I try to read him, it's like reaching into a void. The wolves are agitated, Jasper added. I passed near the boundary line tonight. They're running extra patrols. Alice's pencil snapped. I've tried every angle, every possible decision point. The moment he enters a vision, it corrupts. It's not like the wolves where their futures are mutable. It's like he doesn't have a future because his present is so absolute that nothing can change it. Carlyle turned to her. Explain. The future exists in probability branches, Alice said carefully. Choices create paths. But with him, there are no branches, just a single line moving forward, as if his existence is so fixed that reality bends around him rather than the reverse. Rosalie laughed once, sharp and humorless. So we have an unkillable mystery living above the hardware store. What do we do? Ask him nicely to leave? We establish contact, Carlyle decided. Carefully. I'll approach him tomorrow as a concerned local physician. If he's staying in Forks, we need to understand his intentions. And if he's hostile? Emmett asked, hope creeping into his voice. Edward caught the thought and shook his head. Don't. Emmett, I'm serious. Something about him is wrong on a level I can't articulate. You know how newborns radiate hunger? He radiates finality. Edward's right, Jasper said quietly. I felt it when he passed the school. Not danger exactly, just the emotional equivalent of standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong step and there's nothing but falling. The family fell silent, rain drumming against glass. None of them noticed the figure standing in the tree line, golden eyes fixed on their home. Laurent had arrived in Forks and he was very, very hungry. Saitama's apartment was Spartan, one futon, purchased used. One small table, a hot plate, no television, no decorations. He'd lived in worse. He sat cross-legged on the floor, eating kelp and eggs directly from the pan and wondered vaguely how he'd gotten here. The last thing he remembered was fighting some dimension-hopping monster in Z's city. The monster had opened a portal. Saitama had punched it. Must have punched too hard, he muttered, chewing mechanically. He'd tried his phone again. Still no signal. No internet, no Hero Association registry, which meant no missions, no paycheck, and no way to pay rent on his actual apartment back home. Genos is probably worried, he said to the empty room. The thought didn't bother him much. Genos worried about everything. The cyborg would be fine. Saitama finished eating, washed the pan in the tiny sink, and lay down on the futon. The ceiling had a water stain shaped like a deformed rabbit. He stared at it, feeling the familiar weight of complete and utter boredom settle over him like a blanket. Somewhere in this world, he supposed, there might be strong opponents. Something that could give him the fight he craved, the challenge that would make him feel alive again. But probably not. There was never anything that could challenge him anymore. He closed his eyes and drifted towards sleep, unaware that 3 miles away a nomadic vampire was planning to make him prey. And 6 miles beyond that, a pack of shapeshifters was debating whether to kill him on sight. Saitama began to snore softly. The sound was perfectly mundanely human. It was also the last moment of calm Forks Washington would experience for a very long time. Laurent moved through the forest with the fluid grace of a predator who'd hunted for centuries. The Denali coven had been tolerable. Tanya was lovely if too committed to their tedious vegetarian lifestyle, but the monotony had become unbearable. He'd heard Victoria was in the area, still plotting revenge against the Cullens for James's death. Perhaps he'd find her, offer assistance. The thought of watching Edward Cullen suffer had its appeal. But first he needed to feed. The scent reached him before he saw the town. Human blood, warm and abundant. A small population, isolated. Perfect. He'd take one from the edges, someone who wouldn't be missed immediately, then move on before the Cullens noticed. Drifted closer to Forks proper, selecting his prey by scent. The hardware store. Someone lived above it. He scaled the building in silence, peered through the window. A bald man in a white shirt and yellow pants slept on a futon. Laurent's eyes narrowed. The human's heartbeat was slow, steady. No fear response despite a vampire's presence mere feet away. Either incredibly unaware or incredibly stupid. He tested the window. Unlocked. Laurent smiled, revealing teeth that hadn't touched human blood in months. The Denali sisters would disapprove, but they weren't here. And this human, alone, isolated, completely unaware, was practically asking to be someone's meal. He slid the window open with infinite care and climbed inside. The bald man didn't stir. Laurent approached, hunger sharpening his senses. The man's blood sang beneath his skin, rich and strange, not quite human, something else. Better. He reached out, hand extended toward the sleeping human's throat. Saitama's eyes opened. "Oh," he said flatly. "You're one of those." Laurent froze. The human's expression hadn't changed. Still bored, still tired, as if waking to find a vampire in his room was mildly inconvenient rather than terrifying. One of what? Laurent asked, genuinely curious despite his hunger. The pale people, Saitama said, sitting up. I saw some of you in town. You're not ghosts, so vampires, I guess. Laurent blinked. In 300 years, he'd never had prey casually identify his species. You're remarkably calm for someone about to die. Yeah, I get that a lot. Saitama stood, stretching. Listen, I'm trying to sleep. Can you do the whole attacking thing some other time? The sheer audacity of the statement stunned Laurent into silence. Then he laughed, a cold, predatory sound. I'm afraid not, he said, lunging forward with the speed that made vampires apex predators. His hand closed around the human's throat. Saitama looked down at Laurent's hand, then back up at Laurent's face. Okay, he said. Guess we're doing this now. He flicked Laurent's forehead. The sound was like a thunderclap. Laurent's head snapped back with force that shattered his marble-hard vampire spine. His body flew backward, crashed through the apartment wall, sailed across the street and impacted the forest tree line with enough velocity to splinter 3 evergreens before finally stopping. He had exactly 1.3 seconds to process what had happened, impossible, physics-defying, reality-breaking, before his shattered body began regenerating. Venom flooded his system, repairing the catastrophic damage. His spine reconnected, his crushed skull reformed. Through the haze of pain and shock, one thought crystallized with perfect, terrifying clarity. That wasn't a human. 3 miles away in the Cullen house, every vampire's head snapped toward Forks proper. What was that? Emmett asked. Edward's eyes were wide, his gift suddenly flooded with panicked human thoughts from the town's edge. Someone screamed, multiple someones. Something happened near the hardware store, Alice whispered, her face sheet white. I couldn't see it, but it's happening. Right now. The family moved as one, racing toward Forks at inhuman speed. On the Quileute reservation, Sam Yulee phased mid-stride, the pack mind erupting with alarm. What was that? The wrongness, Sam identified. It just did something. And in the crater of splintered trees, Laurent pulled himself upright, golden eyes blazing with fury, ancient pride wounded, and for the first time in 3 centuries felt something he'd forgotten existed. Fear. Laurent stood among the shattered trees, venom still knitting his spine back together, and stared at the hole punched through the hardware store building. Rain poured through the gap, illuminating the apartment beyond where the bald man stood, scratching his head. Huh, Saitama said, looking at the destruction. My bad. Didn't mean to wreck the place. Every instinct Laurent possessed, 3 centuries of hunting, survival, and predatory calculation, screamed at him to run. But pride, that ancient vampire curse, kept him rooted. He'd been flicked, like an insect, like nothing. What are you? Laurent hissed, crouching into a hunting stance despite his body's protests. Saitama stepped through the hole in his wall, landing in the street below with a soft splash. Just a guy who's trying to sleep. You're the one who broke into my apartment. You're not human. I mean, I'm pretty sure I am. Saitama looked at his hand. Unless something changed when I got here, that'd be weird. Laurent's analytical mind worked through impossible data. The force required to damage a vampire's body enough to cause structural spinal failure exceeded anything he'd witnessed outside of Volturi throne room demonstrations. And this creature had done it with a flick. Behind him, golden eyes emerged from the darkness, 6 of them. The Cullens arrived in a loose formation, Emmett and Jasper flanking, Edward and Carlisle central, Rosalie and Alice on the wings. Their faces showed identical expressions of shock as they assessed the scene. Laurent regenerating, trees destroyed, a hole punched through a building. And in the center, the bald man in yellow pants, looking mildly annoyed. "Laurent," Carlyle said carefully, his physician's voice steady despite the chaos. "What happened here?" "I tried to feed," Laurent said, not taking his eyes off Saitama. "It defended itself." Edward's gift suddenly crashed into Laurent's thoughts. Images of approaching prey, hands on throat, then nothing but explosive force and pain. He turned to Saitama, pressing against that void again, finding nothing. "Sir," Carlyle addressed Saitama, hands visible and non-threatening. "I'm Dr. Carlyle Cullen. Are you injured?" Saitama looked at the assembled vampires. "More of you, huh?" He counted. 7 total, that's probably most of you in town, right? "You can see us clearly," Edward said, "in darkness, moving at speed." "I mean, yeah, you're right there." Saitama turned back to Laurent. "So are we done? I've got work tomorrow." He paused. "Actually, I need to find work tomorrow." "Does this town have a hero association?" The vampires exchanged glances. "A what?" Rosalie asked. "Hero association, you know, for heroes, fighting monsters, stopping crime, that kind of thing." Saitama sighed. "Never mind. Probably not." Laurent's rational mind warred with his wounded pride. The smart move was to leave, report this to Victoria or even the Volturi, let someone else determine what this creature was. But the way the thing spoke, so casual, so dismissive, ignited something dark in him. "You think this is over?" Laurent said, his voice dropping to a growl. "You think one lucky strike?" "It wasn't lucky," Saitama said flatly. "You grabbed my throat, I flicked you, that's cause and effect." "I am 300 years old," Laurent snarled. "I have hunted thousands of humans across 3 continents. I have killed werewolves and vampires alike. You are prey." "Okay," Saitama said. Laurent exploded into motion, closing the distance in a blink, hands extended as claws, aiming for decapitation, the one reliable method to kill anything that regenerated. Saitama's punch was economical, no wind-up, no wasted movement, just a straight right that connected with Laurent's chest. The sound was like a mountain breaking. Laurent's torso imploded, his ribcage, spine, and internal structure compressed into a space roughly the size of a softball. His arms and legs separated from the compressed center mass. His head flew upward in a perfect arc. The compressed center struck the ground with enough force to crater the asphalt, sending spiderweb cracks through the street for 30 feet in every direction. The head landed with a dull thud near Carlyle's feet, eyes still wide with shock, mouth frozen mid-snarl. Saitama looked at his fist, then at the remains. "Oh, that's not good." The Cullens stood in frozen horror. Emmett, who prided himself on vampire strength, stared at the crater. That's not possible." "He compressed him," Jasper whispered, his gift overwhelmed by the sheer absence of emotion from Saitama. Not calm, not satisfaction, just void. The force required to compress vampire tissue. Edward's gift finally caught fragments. Laurent's last thought crystallized in the instant before obliteration. "God." Rosalie's voice was barely audible. "Did he just kill Laurent with one punch?" Alice's face had gone slack. "I couldn't see it. Even happening in real time, I couldn't see it." Carlyle approached the compressed remains carefully. Venom leaked from the destroyed tissue, but no regeneration began. Couldn't begin. There wasn't enough intact structure to rebuild from. He looked up at Saitama. "What are you?" "Saitama," the bald man said. "And I really didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted him to stop attacking me." "That was restraint?" Emmett asked incredulously. "I barely hit him." The statement hung in the rain-soaked air. Edward's mind raced through implications. If that was restraint, if that was barely, then what was this creature capable of at full power? The force to compress a vampire's marble-hard body exceeded anything in their world. The Volturi's most powerful guard couldn't achieve that level of destruction. "We need to dispose of the remains," Carlyle said quietly, "before humans see." "I can clean it up," Saitama offered. "I made the mess." "No," Carlyle said quickly. "We'll handle it. Vampire remains require fire. Please, Mr. Saitama, return to your apartment. We'll discuss this tomorrow." "During daylight, peacefully," Saitama shrugged. "Sure, but someone should probably fix my wall." He walked back toward the hardware store, jumped up through the hole he'd created earlier, and disappeared inside. The Cullens stared after him. "Carlyle," Rosalie said carefully, "we need to call the Volturi right now." "No," Carlyle said immediately. "Absolutely not. He just killed Laurent like stepping on an ant." "Which is exactly why we don't involve Aro." Carlyle's golden eyes were fierce. "If the Volturi learn something exists that can destroy vampires with casual strikes, they'll either try to recruit it or eliminate it. Either option ends in catastrophe." "So what do we do?" Alice asked. Emmett knelt by the crater, running his hand along the fractured asphalt. "We figure out what the hell he is, and we pray he stays friendly." Edward's phone vibrated. He looked at the text and went very still. "What?" Jasper asked. "Sam Yulee. The wolves felt it. They're coming." The Quileute wolves emerged from the tree line in human form. Sam, Jared, Paul, and Embry. Their bodies still radiating the heat of transformation. They stopped at the treaty line, eyes fixed on the destruction, and Sam's jaw tightened. "Cullen," he said, addressing Carlyle without preamble. "What happened here?" "An accident," Carlyle said carefully. "A nomadic vampire attempted to hunt in town. It was stopped." Paul's eyes narrowed. "Stopped how?" "We felt that impact from the reservation. Thought a bomb went off." The wolves' gazes tracked to the crater, the compressed remains, the shattered trees. Jared's face paled. "Is that a vampire? What did that to it?" "Not what," Edward said quietly. "Who?" Sam's attention snapped to him. "Explain. Now." Before Carlyle could answer, Saitama's head appeared through the hole in his apartment wall. "Hey, is there gonna be more fighting? Because I've got a landlord to talk to in the morning and I'd really like to sleep." 4 pairs of wolf-enhanced eyes locked onto him. Paul's body began trembling, the warning sign of an involuntary phase. "That's the wrongness. That's what we've been sensing." "He's human," Sam said, but his voice carried uncertainty. "No," Jared whispered. "Look at him. Really look." Saitama noticed the new arrivals. "Oh, more people. You guys with them?" He gestured at the Cullens. "We're with the tribe," Sam said carefully. "The Quileute. This is our territory." "Cool. I'm Saitama. I just moved here." "You killed a vampire," Paul said, aggression bleeding into his voice despite Sam's warning look. "He attacked me first," Saitama said reasonably. "Seemed like a self-defense situation." Embry studied the compressed remains, then Saitama, then back. "How?" "Punched him." The simplicity of the statement made it worse somehow. Not magic, not a weapon, not supernatural pack enhancement. Just a punch. Sam's tactical mind worked through scenarios. The treaty with the Cullens maintained balance. Vampires stayed off Quileute land. Wolves didn't expose them. But this creature wasn't vampire, and it had just demonstrated the ability to destroy one with casual effort. If it crossed onto the reservation. "Mr. Saitama," Sam said, his alpha authority making the words almost a command. "The forest to the south is tribal land, protected territory. You cannot enter there." "Okay," Saitama said. "I don't really hike anyway." "I'm serious. If you cross that boundary..." He said okay, Edward interrupted, hearing both the wolf's thoughts and Saitama's complete indifference. He's not interested in your territory. Paul stepped forward aggressively. How do we know that? How do we know it won't decide to wander through our land and accidentally destroy half the reservation? Because I just said I won't, Saitama said, sounding mildly annoyed now. Look, I'm trying to be polite here, but you guys are being kinda loud and it's late. Polite? Paul's voice rose. You just killed something in the middle of town. There's a hole in a building. You think this is polite? Saitama's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, a microscopic adjustment that made every supernatural being present tense involuntarily. He attacked me in my apartment, Saitama said quietly. While I was sleeping, I defended myself. If you've got a problem with that, we can discuss it. But I'm tired, and you're yelling, and I'd really appreciate it if everyone could just calm down. The temperature seemed to drop despite the wolf's natural heat. Sam put a hand on Paul's shoulder, physically restraining him. His gift let him feel it. Not threat exactly, but potential. Like standing next to a dormant volcano that might be dormant or might just be waiting. Paul, stand down, Sam ordered, but now. The young wolf backed off, trembling with barely controlled rage. Carlyle stepped between the groups diplomatically. Sam, I give you my word, the Cullens will monitor this situation. Mr. Saitama has shown no aggressive intent. Tonight was self-defense against a nomad who broke our own laws by hunting in a populated area. Your laws, Sam said, not ours. We don't trust vampires to police themselves. I'm not a vampire, Saitama called down. Just to clarify. Then what are you? Jared asked. Hero. Class B, rank 7, or I was before I got here. Saitama scratched his head. Might need to re-register if there's a local association. The supernatural beings stared at him. A hero, Rosalie said flatly. Yeah, you know, saving people, fighting monsters, that kind of thing. And you're ranked B? Emmett asked. Yeah, the promotion exam for Class A is really political. I keep failing the written portion. The absurdity of the statement, this creature that had just compressed a vampire discussing bureaucratic testing, created a surreal pause in the tension. Alice laughed once, sharp and slightly hysterical. He's serious. He actually thinks he's just a hero who failed a test. Edward heard the thoughts beneath. This being, this thing, genuinely believed it was normal, believed the rankings were legitimate, had no conception of its own impossibility. Mr. Saitama, Carlyle said carefully, would you be willing to meet with me tomorrow, privately? I'd like to discuss your situation and perhaps help you understand ours. Sure, I guess. Where? My home. I'll send my son Edward to escort you. Say, 10 in the morning? Works for me. Can I sleep now? Yes, please, and thank you for not escalating tonight. Saitama gave a small wave and disappeared back into his apartment. The moment he was gone, Sam turned on Carlyle. You cannot let that thing stay in Forks. It's not our choice to make, Carlyle said. He's broken no laws. He killed a vampire. Who was trying to kill him? Sam, I understand your concern, but forcing him to leave could be catastrophic. Better to maintain peaceful contact. And if he changes his mind? If he decides Forks is boring and wanders onto our land, Edward met Sam's eyes. Then you'll have approximately 3 seconds to regret confronting him before you become a crater like Laurent. The blunt statement made everyone flinch. Paul snarled. We're not afraid of... You should be, Jasper said quietly, his gift still reeling from the encounter. I've felt the Volturi's guard. Jane, Alec, Felix. He doesn't register as dangerous because he's not threatening. He's just absolute. Like feeling the ocean or gravity. You don't threaten the ocean. Sam's jaw worked silently. Finally, he nodded. We'll maintain the boundary, but Cullen, if he crosses it, we will defend our land. Understood. The wolves melted back into the forest, their heat signatures vanishing into the darkness. The Cullens remained, staring at the compressed vampire remains. Rosalie, Carlyle said quietly, gather firewood. We need to burn Laurent before sunrise. As they worked to destroy the evidence, none of them noticed the pale figure watching from a distant ridge. Victoria, her red hair plastered to her face by rain, her eyes wide with shock and a slow, calculating smile spreading across her face. She'd come to Forks for revenge. She might have just found the weapon to deliver it. The Cullen house felt like a war room by dawn. They'd burned Laurent's remains, repaired the street as best they could, and convinced the handful of human witnesses that a gas main had exploded. Saitama's landlord had been paid generously to remain silent and arrange immediate repairs. Now the family sat in their living room, and for the first time in decades, Carlyle didn't have answers. We should run, Rosalie said bluntly. Pack up, leave Forks. Let someone else deal with this. And go where? Carlyle asked. He's not a local problem. If he's as powerful as he appeared, there's nowhere on earth we could go that would matter. Then we call Aro, she insisted. Let the Volturi handle it. No, Carlyle said firmly. Absolutely not. Why? Emmett asked. I mean, I'm with you, but what's the play here? Edward answered, his voice hollow. Because Aro will try to recruit him, touch his hand, see his memories, understand his power. And when Saitama inevitably refuses because nothing in his thoughts suggests he understands authority, Aro will order his destruction. And, Rosalie pressed, and I don't think the Volturi guard can destroy him, Edward finished. Which means Aro will learn his authority has limits. Which means the entire vampire power structure collapses. The room fell silent. Alice stirred, her eyes refocusing. I saw something. Just a fragment. Victoria was watching last night. She's planning something. Of course she is, Jasper muttered. Revenge-driven nomad sees ultimate weapon, does the math. She'll try to manipulate him, Carlyle realized. Turn him against us. Will it work? Esme asked quietly. Edward shook his head slowly. I don't know. His thoughts are absent, but his words suggest he operates on simple principles. Self-defense, helping people, following basic rules. He agreed to stay off Quileute land without argument. So we established relationship first, Carlyle decided. I'll meet with him this morning, alone. The rest of you maintain normal routines. We cannot let Forks see us behaving differently. What do we tell him? Alice asked. The truth, Carlyle said. About what we are, about the Volturi, about the secrecy we maintain, and we hope his heroic principles include not destroying the hidden world. Emmett laughed darkly. We're betting our survival on a bald guy who failed a written test? We're betting our survival on someone who chose not to kill us last night, Carlyle corrected. That's more than Laurent bet on. At precisely 10 a.m., Edward knocked on Saitama's repaired apartment door. The human, creature thing, opened it immediately, dressed in a different outfit but same style. Simple shirt, pants, boots. His face held the same bored expression. Dr. Cullen sent you? Saitama asked. Yes, I'm Edward, his son. I'll drive you to our home. You look young to be his son. Edward chose his words carefully. Our family is complicated. You'll understand once we talk. They descended to Edward's Volvo. Saitama folded himself into the passenger seat without complaint, watching the rainforest pass by the windows. So, Saitama said conversationally, you're all vampires, right? Edward nearly crashed the car. How did you... The pale guy last night said I was prey. Kept talking about hunting. Plus, you all look kind of similar. The eyes, the way you move. I've fought vampire-type monsters before. Monsters, Edward repeated. Yeah. Mosquito Girl, Subterranean King, Deep Sea King. Different types, but same general theme. Drink blood, hunt humans, that kind of thing. Edward's mind reeled. And you fought them? Killed them, mostly. They were threatening people. The casual admission made Edward's hands tighten on the wheel. Mr. Saitama, vampires in this world aren't like monsters. We're intelligent, organized. We have laws, culture, civilization going back 3,000 years. Oh, Saitama considered this. So like demon-level threats, but with politics? I suppose that's accurate. Cool, Genos would love this. He's really into complicated enemies. Edward pulled into the Cullen driveway, grateful for the distraction. The house rose before them, glass and modern architecture amid ancient trees. Nice place, Saitama observed. Inside, Carlyle waited in his study, books surrounding him like armor. He stood as they entered, offering his hand. Mr. Saitama, thank you for coming. Saitama shook his hand. Carlyle's vampire mind noted the grip. Firm but not crushing, human temperature, normal texture. Everything suggesting humanity except for the impossible strength lurking beneath. Please, sit. Can I offer you anything? Water? Coffee? Water's fine. Esme appeared with a glass almost immediately, her maternal warmth trying to fill the room. Saitama thanked her and sat on the leather couch, looking around with mild interest. So, he said, Edward says you guys have been around for 3,000 years. Some of us, Carlyle corrected. I'm only 370. The oldest of our kind are in Italy, the Volturi. They enforce our laws. What laws? Primarily secrecy. Vampires cannot reveal themselves to humans. Those who do are destroyed. Saitama took a sip of water. Makes sense. Public panic, mob violence, that kind of thing. Exactly. Which is why last night concerns us. Not because you defended yourself, Laurent violated multiple laws by attempting to hunt in a populated area, but because the manner of his death was conspicuous. The crater, Saitama said. Yeah, sorry about that. I've been trying to hold back more, but it's hard to judge sometimes. Hold back, Edward repeated. That was holding back? Well, yeah. If I'd actually hit him seriously, the whole building probably would have collapsed. The Cullens exchanged glances. Carlyle leaned forward. Mr. Saitama, may I ask what you are? Your origins? Your nature? Human. Least I used to be. Then I did this training. Regimen. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10K run every single day for 3 years. Ate 3 meals, no AC or heat. Eventually my hair fell out and I got really strong. Silence. That's it? Edward asked incredulously. Exercise made you... this? I mean, it was really consistent exercise. Genos thinks there's more to it, but that's what I did. Carlyle's physician mind rejected the explanation immediately, but Saitama's earnest tone suggested he genuinely believed it. And where are you from? Z City. But I got pulled through some portal during a fight, still trying to figure out how to get back. You're from another dimension, Carlyle said slowly. Maybe? Or really far away. Geography was never my strong subject. Alice appeared in the doorway, her face troubled. Carlyle, we have a problem. What is it? Bella just texted Edward. She's asking why there's police tape around the hardware store and what the explosion was about. Edward closed his eyes. Of course she is. Saitama tilted his head. Who's Bella? A human friend, Carlyle said carefully. She's perceptive, and unfortunately dating Edward, which means she's entangled in our world more than we'd prefer. Oh, so she knows about the vampire thing? She does now. Edward muttered, and she's going to have questions about last night. Just tell her the truth, Saitama said. Guy broke into my place, I defended myself, accident happened. The truth is you compressed a vampire into a ball with a single punch, Rosalie said from the hallway. That's not exactly a normal self-defense claim. I mean, for me it kind of is. The statement hung in the air. Jasper entered, his gift sampling the room. He believes it. Everything he's saying, he genuinely perceives himself as normal. That's because I am normal, Saitama said. I'm just a hero for fun. This whole vampire thing is new, but monsters attacking people isn't. You guys seem nice enough, so I'm guessing you don't hunt. Humans? We don't, Carlyle confirmed. Our family feeds only on animal blood. We call ourselves vegetarians. Huh. Vampire vegetarians, that's actually pretty cool. Saitama finished his water. So what do you need from me, besides not telling people about you? Honestly, Carlyle said, we need you to maintain your current approach. Keep a low profile. Avoid confrontations. And most importantly, if anyone claiming authority approaches you, particularly very old vampires with Italian accents, please contact us immediately before engaging. Italian vampires, Saitama repeated. Got it. Are they stronger than the other one? Much, Edward said. And more importantly, they're the law. If they perceive you as a threat to secrecy, they'll try to kill me, Saitama finished. Okay, I'll avoid starting fights. Starting them isn't what concerns us, Jasper said quietly. Before anyone could elaborate, Alice gasped, her eyes going distant, a vision finally breaking through. Victoria, she whispered. She's making contact. She's going to... The window shattered inward. A blur of red hair and white skin exploded into the room. Victoria's face twisted with desperation and cunning. She grabbed Saitama's shoulder before anyone could react. Please, she said urgently. They killed my mate. The Cullens murdered James. I'm begging you, help me get justice. The room froze. Saitama looked at her hand on his shoulder, then at her face, then at the assembled Cullens. Is this true? He asked Carlyle. Edward moved into a defensive position instinctively, putting himself between Bella's scent trail and the intruder. Emmett and Jasper flanked from opposite sides, boxing Victoria in. But the red-haired vampire's eyes never left Saitama, her fingers gripping his shoulder with desperate intensity. James was my mate, she said, her voice cracking with genuine anguish. We were together for centuries. The Cullens lured him into a trap and executed him. They're murderers hiding behind their civilized facade. Victoria, Carlyle said carefully, his hands raised. You know that's not the complete truth. Isn't it? She turned her wild eyes on him. You broke him into pieces and burned him. Don't pretend it was justice. Saitama's expression remained neutral. Somebody want to give me the full story? Edward spoke, his voice tight. James was a tracker, a sadistic hunter who made a game of torturing prey. He targeted Bella, a human under our protection, because he wanted the challenge. We stopped him before he could kill her. He was following his nature, Victoria spat. You vegetarians pretend you're so evolved, but you're just animals wearing suits. At least James was honest about what he was. He was going to torture and murder an innocent girl, Rosalie countered. There's no honest defense for that. Victoria's grip on Saitama tightened. You understand, don't you? You're a hunter too. I saw what you did to Laurent, the power, the efficiency. You're apex like James was. These Cullens, they'll pretend to be your friends, but the moment you threaten their precious secrecy, they'll destroy you just like they destroyed him. Saitama looked at Victoria's hand on his shoulder, then gently removed it. You should probably let go. She released him but didn't retreat. I'm not asking you to kill kill them. Just help me leave Forks safely. They'll hunt me the moment I try to run. With your protection? Hold on, Saitama interrupted. Let me get this straight. Your mate was hunting a human. These guys stopped him. Now you want revenge? Justice, Victoria corrected. Okay, justice, but the human he was hunting, was she innocent? Victoria hesitated. That's not relevant. It kind of is, though. I mean, if he was hunting criminals or monsters, that's one thing. But if he was just hunting random people for fun... We're vampires, Victoria said desperately. Hunting is what we do. It's our nature. You can't blame a wolf for being a wolf. Saitama's bored expression didn't change. Sure I can. I've fought lots of monsters who claim nature made them do it. Usually right before I punch them. The room's tension shifted. Edward heard Victoria's thoughts crystallize into panic. This wasn't going according to plan. You don't understand, she tried again. The Cullens are manipulating you. They're making you think they're the good guys, but they enforce their morality through violence. They're hypocrites. Maybe, Saitama said, but the way you're describing your mate, he sounds like the kind of monster I usually fight. So I'm not really seeing why I'd help you. Victoria's face twisted with rage and grief. Because they'll do the same to you. The moment you become inconvenient, the moment their precious human pets are threatened, they'll turn on you. Then I'll deal with it when it happens. You're making a mistake, Victoria hissed. The Volturi will come. They'll see you as a threat to everything we've built. And when they try to kill you, and they will, the Cullens won't help. They'll step aside and let it happen because their survival depends on Volturi approval. For the first time, Saitama's expression showed something other than boredom, mild interest. These Volturi guys keep coming up. Are they actually strong, or is it more of a political thing? Both, Edward said quietly. They're ancient, powerful, and they have gifts that make them nearly impossible to fight. Jane can make you feel like you're burning alive. Alec can cut off your senses entirely. Felix is the strongest vampire in existence. Huh, Saitama said, and that actually sounds kind of interesting. Every vampire in the room tensed. No, Carlyle said firmly. Mr. Saitama, fighting the Volturi would be catastrophic, even if you won. Especially if you won, Alice interjected, her vision clearing. If you destroy the Volturi, the entire vampire world loses its governing structure, chaos, newborn armies, mass exposure, human genocide on a scale you can't imagine. Saitama absorbed this. So they're like the Hero Association, bureaucratic and annoying but necessary. Exactly, Carlyle said, relief flooding his voice. Victoria saw her opportunity slipping away. She moved with desperate speed, circling to put the couch between herself and the Cullens. He's lying. The Volturi aren't protectors, they're tyrants. They execute anyone who threatens their power. That's how governments work, Saitama said. The Hero Association kicked me out of a tournament once for breaking the arena. It was annoying, but I got over it. This isn't a tournament, Victoria shrieked. This is survival, and you're choosing the wrong side. I'm not choosing any side. I'm just trying to figure out how to get home. The statement deflated Victoria's momentum. She stared at him, red eyes wide with disbelief. Get home? Yeah, I'm from Z City. Got pulled here by accident. Once I figure out the portal thing, I'll head back. Edward heard Victoria's thoughts spiral through desperation, calculation, and finally cold fury. She'd gambled everything on recruiting this power, and he didn't care. Wasn't interested. Didn't even see the game being played. Then you're useless, she spat. Pretty much, Saitama agreed. Victoria's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Edward thought she might attack, throw herself at Saitama in suicidal rage. But survival instinct won. She backed toward the shattered window. This isn't over, she said to the Cullens. I'll find another way. And when I do... Victoria, Carlyle said quietly. James chose his path. He knew the risks. I'm sorry for your loss, but seeking revenge will only lead to your own destruction. Save your pity, Doctor. She glanced once more at Saitama. You'll regret not helping me. When the Volturi come for you, you'll wish you had allies. She was gone in a blur of motion, disappearing into the forest. Emmett moved to pursue, but Carlyle held up a hand. Let her go. She's not our immediate concern. She'll create problems, Jasper warned. Revenge-driven vampires are unpredictable. She'll also spread word about Saitama, Rosalie added. Every nomad in North America will hear about him within a week. Saitama stood, brushing broken glass off his pants. Should I be worried about that? Honestly, Edward said. We don't know. You're unprecedented. I get that a lot. Saitama headed toward the door. I should probably go. Thanks for the water. Wait, Carlyle said. Are you all right? Victoria's claims, the things she said about she was manipulating me, Saitama said simply. Trying to make me emotional so I'd help her. I've seen it before. Villains do it all the time. Claim their victims, blame heroes for their problems, usually right before they try to destroy a city. And you trust us instead? Alice asked carefully. Not really. I don't know you guys. But her mate was hunting an innocent person, so that's pretty clearly wrong. The rest I'll figure out as I go. He walked out, leaving the Cullens staring after him. He's infuriatingly reasonable, Rosalie muttered. He operates on simple moral principles, Carlyle observed. Protect innocence, stop threats, maintain order. It's almost childlike in its clarity. Which makes him either our best ally or worst enemy, Jasper said, depending on how he classifies us. Edward's phone buzzed. Bella asking if he was okay, if the explosion was related. To vampires, if she should worry, I need to handle Bella, he said. And I need to call the Denali Coven, Carlyle decided. Warn them about Victoria and about Saitama. They deserve to know what's happening. What about the Volturi? Alice asked quietly. The room fell silent. We pray they don't find out, Carlyle finally said. And we do everything possible to help Saitama find his way home before they do. 3 days passed in uneasy calm. Saitama found work at the local grocery store, stocking shelves with the same bored efficiency he approached everything. The Cullens maintained careful surveillance from a distance. Victoria vanished, but her presence lingered like a threat in the shadows. And in Volterra, Italy, in a throne room carved from ancient stone, Aro received a visitor. The nomad who entered was thin, nervous, his eyes darting around the chamber where the 3 Volturi kings sat in eternal judgment. Marcus looked on with his usual disinterest. Caius leaned forward with predatory interest. Aro smiled. Thomas? Aro said warmly, though his eyes held no warmth. How pleasant to see you. I trust you bring news from the Americas. Yes, Master Aro. Thomas bowed deeply. I witnessed something in Washington, something I believe you should know about. Do tell, Aro's smile widened. We so rarely receive visitors bearing gifts of knowledge. There's a creature in Forks, not vampire, not shifter. It killed Laurent, compressed him with a single strike. I saw it with my own eyes. The throne room fell silent. Caius sat forward. Laurent is dead? His remains were burned by the Cullens, but I saw the destruction before they cleaned it. A crater in the street, Master. And the creature, it looked human but moved wrong, smelled wrong. The Cullens are protecting it. Aro's fingers drummed on his throne's armrest. Protecting it. How interesting. And Carlyle hasn't reported this? No, Master. I see. Aro stood gracefully. Thank you, Thomas. You've done well to bring this to our attention. Jane, dear, please escort our guest to the tower. He deserves rest after his long journey. Jane appeared from the shadows, her childlike face expressionless. Thomas followed her gratefully, not realizing that guests who brought disturbing news rarely left the tower. Once they were alone, Caius turned to Aro. The Cullens are hiding something powerful enough to kill. Laurent? This is a violation of— Now, brother, Aro interrupted. Let's not be hasty. Carlyle is our dear friend. Perhaps he simply hasn't had time to report. These things happen. You don't believe that, Marcus said quietly, his gift for relationships reading the room's dynamics. You're curious. I am always curious, dear Marcus. Aro's eyes gleamed. A creature that can kill vampires? That the precognitive Alice cannot see? That registers as neither human nor supernatural? Yes, I am tremendously curious. We should dispatch a guard, Caius said. Bring the creature here for examination. Or destroy it, Marcus suggested with rare engagement, if it threatens the secrecy. Knowledge first, Aro decided. Destruction can always follow understanding, but the reverse is tragically impossible. He turned to the shadows. Dimitri, Felix, Jane, and Alec, you will travel to Forks and investigate this creature. Observe, evaluate, and report back. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. 4 figures emerged from the darkness. Dimitri the tracker, Felix the executioner, and the terrible twins Jane and Alec, whose gifts made them the most feared vampires in existence. Master Aro, Dimitri said, bowing. What if the Cullens interfere? Then remind them where their loyalties should lie. But please try to be diplomatic. Carlyle is an old friend, and I would hate for this to become unpleasant. The 4 departed with inhuman speed. Aro returned to his throne, steepling his fingers. What do you think, brothers? A weapon? A new species? Something from the shapeshifter bloodlines we haven't encountered? I think, Marcus said slowly, that we're about to discover whether the Cullens value their friendship with us over their protection of this creature. And that answer will tell us more than the creature itself ever could. Caius smiled coldly. Either way, we win. We gain knowledge or we remove disloyal subjects. Both outcomes are acceptable. Aro nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead, considering possibilities. A creature beyond Alice's sight, beyond Edward's telepathy. Powerful enough to destroy a vampire with casual effort, if he could recruit it, turn it to the Volturi's service. But that was getting ahead of himself. First, observation, then understanding. Then, if fortune smiled, acquisition. And if not, well, the Volturi hadn't maintained power for 3,000 years by allowing threats to flourish. In Forks, Saitama finished his shift at the grocery store, collected his meager paycheck, and walked home through the eternal rain. He discovered the hardware store had a back entrance that didn't require passing the repaired crater, which made things simpler. His apartment was still sparse. He'd bought a used television but couldn't figure out how to get it working without cable. The water stain on the ceiling still looked like a deformed rabbit. His hero suit hung in the tiny closet, yellow and white and completely out of place in the Pacific Northwest. He made dinner, eggs, kelp, rice, and ate mechanically while staring at the wall. I wonder if Genos is still looking for me, he said to the empty room. The thought stirred something in him. Not quite emotion. Saitama had trouble accessing those anymore, but something close. Genos was probably tearing apart dimensional research facilities trying to find him. King was probably worried. The Hero Association was probably furious about an S-class emergency handled without their top hero. But none of that mattered because he couldn't get back. Saitama finished eating, washed his dishes, and lay down on the futon. Tomorrow he'd stock more shelves. Maybe the hardware store owner would have fixed his wall properly this time. Maybe the rain would stop, though he doubted it. Maybe something interesting would happen. Probably not, though. He closed his eyes, unaware that 4 of the most dangerous vampires in existence were currently traveling toward Forks at supernatural speed, that the Cullens were frantically debating evacuation protocols, or that his presence had just triggered a political crisis that would reshape the supernatural world's entire power structure. Saitama began to snore, and in the forests surrounding Forks, Victoria smiled as she watched figures approaching from the east. Powerful figures, ancient figures, figures that radiated the kind of authority that made even nomad vampires bow their heads. The Volturi had arrived. Her revenge was beginning. Alice's scream tore through the Cullen house at 3 a.m. The family materialized in her room within seconds. She sat upright in bed, her body rigid, eyes unfocused and streaming with tears that would never fall. "They're coming," she whispered. 4 of them. Jane, Alec, Felix, Dimitri, they'll be here by dawn. Carlyle's face went pale. "The guard. Arrow sent the guard." "Not to destroy," Alice clarified, her vision still unfolding. "To observe, to evaluate. But if they perceive threat..." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Edward grabbed his phone. "We need to warn Saitama." "No," Jasper said immediately, his tactical mind overriding emotion. "If we warn him, he'll know something's wrong. He'll potentially prepare for confrontation. Better he remains unaware, continues his normal routine." "So we just let the Volturi guard walk into town and confront him?" Rosalie demanded. "We intercept," Carlyle decided. "Meet them at the boundary, explain the situation before they encounter Saitama directly. Perhaps we can convince them to observe from a distance." "They'll want to test him," Edward said quietly, hearing the unspoken thoughts in his father's mind. "Jane will want to use her gift. It's how they evaluate threats." The room fell silent as that implication settled. "If Jane tries to hurt him," Emmett started. "Then we pray Saitama's restraint holds," Carlyle finished. "Because if it doesn't, if he responds to a Volturi attack the way he responded to Laurent..." Alice's vision shifted, fractured, showed multiple futures cascading into static. "I can't see past the confrontation, too many variables. But Carlyle, one path shows Victoria watching. She's orchestrated this somehow." "Of course she has," Jasper muttered. "Classic revenge play. Can't beat us directly, so she brings in overwhelming force and lets chaos do the work. Then we have hours to figure out how to prevent catastrophe," Carlyle said. "Edward, Emmett, Jasper, you're with me, we'll meet. The guard at the forest boundary. Rosalie, Alice, Esme, stay here. If things go wrong, if we don't return, take Bella and run." "Carlyle," Esme started. "No arguments. The family's survival takes precedence." He turned to Edward. "And if I give the signal, you run too, all of you, don't look back." They moved with grim efficiency, centuries of survival instinct overriding hope. The Volturi guard entered Forks territory just as the sky began its grudging shift from black to gray. They moved with the confidence of apex predators who'd never encountered resistance, their gifts making them untouchable. Dimitri led, his tracking sense locked onto the signature Thomas had described. That wrongness, that absence in the natural order. Felix followed, his massive frame radiating barely contained violence. Jane and Alec flanked them, the twins whose gifts had ended more conflicts than any weapon in vampire history. They found the Cullens waiting at the tree line. "Dimitri," Carlyle greeted, his voice carefully neutral. "This is unexpected." "Carlyle." Dimitri's smile was professional. "Master Aro sends his regards. We're here on official business, investigating reports of an unknown entity in your territory." "I was going to contact Aro today," Carlyle said smoothly. "We've been assessing the situation ourselves." For 3 days? Jane's childlike voice carried acid. How thorough of you. Edward caught her thoughts. Contempt, anticipation, hunger for violence. She'd been bored in Volterra, and this mission promised entertainment. The entity is not hostile, Carlyle said carefully. It's simply passing through. We saw no need to alarm Aro over what amounts to a curiosity. A curiosity that killed Laurent, Felix rumbled. That seems worth mentioning. Laurent violated our laws by hunting in town. The entity defended itself. Since then, it's been peaceful. Alec spoke for the first time, his voice eerily calm. We'd like to see it. Evaluate the threat, ourselves. I don't think that's wise, Carlyle said. The entity doesn't understand our world. A sudden confrontation with the Volturi guard might provoke. Are you refusing us? Jane asked sweetly. Because that would be unfortunate. The threat hung in the air like poison. Jasper's gift felt the room's emotional landscape. Dimitri's professional duty, Felix's eager anticipation, Jane's barely suppressed sadism, Alec's cold curiosity. And beneath it all, the absolute certainty that they would not be denied. Of course not, Carlyle said smoothly. But please, let me make introductions. The entity, his name is Saitama, operates on heroic principles. If you approach as investigators rather than executioners, he'll likely cooperate. Heroic principles, Jane repeated mockingly. How quaint. Dimitri held up a hand. Master Arrow's instructions were clear. Observe and evaluate. We'll follow Carlyle's lead, for now. They moved as a group toward Forks proper, the Cullens, leading, the guard following with predatory patience. Dawn broke fully as they approached the hardware store, gray light revealing Saitama descending the external stairs, dressed for his grocery store shift. He saw the group and stopped. Oh, he said, more of you. Jane's eyes narrowed. It dresses like a human. He, Edward corrected quietly. Saitama identifies as male. It speaks, Alec asked. I'm right here, Saitama said, mild annoyance creeping into his voice. And yeah, I speak. Who are you guys? Dimitri stepped forward, assuming authority. We represent the Volturi, the governing body of the vampire world. We're here to assess your nature and intentions. Okay, Saitama said. I'm human. I'm trying to find a way home, that's pretty much it. Human, Jane laughed. Humans don't kill vampires with single strikes. I mean, I worked out a lot. The statement was so absurd that even Alec's composure cracked slightly. Felix moved closer, his massive frame deliberately intimidating. You don't smell human. You don't move human. Whatever you are, stop lying. I'm not lying. I did 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10K run every single day for 3 years. That's literally what happened. Edward heard Felix's thoughts. Disbelief, anger at perceived mockery, the urge to crush this creature for its insolence. His hand moved toward Saitama's shoulder. Don't, Edward said sharply. Felix's hand closed around Saitama's shoulder anyway, gripping with enough force to shatter human bones. Listen carefully, little creature. The Volturi don't tolerate... Saitama looked down at the hand, then up at Felix's face. You should probably let go. Or what? Felix's grip tightened, marble-hard vampire fingers applying pressure that could crush steel. Or I'll make you let go, Saitama said simply. Jane smiled. This was the part she enjoyed. The moment defiance turned to screaming. Felix, step back, let me handle this. She focused her gift on Saitama, channeling the illusion of burning alive, of flesh melting from bone, of agony beyond human comprehension. Her gift had broken ancient vampires in seconds, reduced newborns to sobbing wrecks, made even Aro himself uncomfortable with its intensity. Saitama blinked. Did you just try something? Jane's smile faltered. She pushed harder, pouring more intensity into the illusion. Vampires who'd endured it for seconds typically begged for death. Huh, Saitama said. Feels like, I don't know, tingly? Impossible, Jane whispered. Alec moved forward, his gift activating. Sensory deprivation, sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, all cut off simultaneously. Victims became trapped in absolute void, helpless and insensate. He'd used it to incapacitate entire covens. Saitama scratched his head. Okay, something's definitely happening now. Are you guys doing some kind of vampire trick? The Volturi guard stood frozen in shock. His mind, Edward said quietly. It's not that he's resisting their gifts. He's experiencing them, but they don't affect him, like shooting a tank with a water gun. The water hits, but it doesn't matter. Impossible, Dimitri repeated. No one is immune to Jane and Alec. I'm getting kind of annoyed, Saitama said. I've got work in 20 minutes and you guys are being weird, so either tell me what you actually want or let me go. Felix's pride overrode his survival instinct. His hand, still gripping Saitama's shoulder, suddenly pulled, trying to tear the creature's arm off with vampire strength. Saitama's other hand moved almost too fast to see. He gripped Felix's wrist and squeezed. The sound of marble cracking echoed through the street. Felix's eyes went wide with shock and pain, sensations he hadn't experienced in 800 years of existence. His wrist crumpled under pressure that exceeded anything in vampire experience. I said, Saitama repeated calmly. Let go. Felix released him and staggered back, cradling his shattered wrist. Venom leaked from the cracks, and his regeneration struggled to repair damage that fundamental. The Volturi guard stood in shocked silence. Jane tried again, desperately, pouring everything she had into her gift. Alec joined her, combining their abilities in a tactic they'd used to destroy rebellious covens. Together, they could make victims experience burning alive while trapped in sensory void. Torture beyond comprehension. Saitama sighed. Look, I don't know what you're trying to do, but it's not working, and I really need to get to work. So either fight me properly or leave me alone. Fight you properly, Jane repeated, her voice shaking with rage and fear. Yeah. You know, actually attacking instead of whatever this tingly feeling thing is. Carlyle stepped forward desperately. Saitama, they're not trying to kill you. This is how they evaluate threats. Please just... They grabbed me, Saitama interrupted. They tried something that felt hostile. If they want to fight, that's fine. But the half-measure thing is annoying. Dimitri's tactical mind finally caught up. He grabbed Jane's arm as she tensed to attack properly. Stand down, now. But that's an order. From Aro himself, observe and evaluate. He turned to Saitama. We apologize for the misunderstanding. Master Aro wishes to speak with you. Would you be willing to travel to Volterra? Where's that? Saitama asked. Italy. That's pretty far. I've got rent due next week. The absurdity of the statement, this creature that had just crushed Felix's wrist, ignored Jane's torture and shrugged off Alec's void, worried about rent, made even Dimitri's composure crack. We would compensate you for your time, he said carefully. How much? Whatever you deem appropriate. Saitama considered. I mean, a trip to Italy sounds interesting, better than stocking shelves, but I don't have a passport. We can arrange travel, Dimitri assured him. Private transport, no customs necessary. Okay. When? Today. Now, if possible. Carlyle's phone was already in his hand, texting Alice, stop them, but Saitama was already nodding. Sure, let me tell my boss I quit. The flight to Italy took 14 hours. The Volturi had arranged a private jet. No questions, no customs, no paper trail. Saitama spent most of it sleeping in his seat while the guard sat in rigid silence, processing what they'd witnessed. Felix's wrist had finally regenerated, but the memory of vulnerability remained. Jane sat with her hands clenched, rage and fear warring on her childlike face. Alec simply stared, his analytical mind unable to reconcile observed data with vampire law. Dimitri called ahead. "Master Aro, we're returning with the entity. It's cooperative?" "Wonderful." Aro's voice came through, warm and eager. "I'm most anxious to make its acquaintance. Any issues?" Dimitri glanced at Felix's still healing wrist. "Several. We'll brief you upon arrival." When they landed in Volterra, night had fallen over the ancient city. Saitama followed the guard through stone corridors that predated nations, past guards who watched with golden eyes into the throne room where 3 kings sat in eternal judgment. Aro stood immediately, his face alight with curiosity. "Welcome, welcome, you must be Saitama. I'm Aro and these are my brothers Marcus and Caius. Please don't be alarmed by the formality, we're simply eager to understand our unexpected guest." Saitama looked around the throne room. "Nice place, very castle-y." Caius's eye twitched. "Tell me," Aro continued smoothly, "you've caused quite a stir in our community. A human who can match vampire strength? It's unprecedented. I simply must understand how this is possible." "I worked out a lot," Saitama said. Yes, so I've heard. But surely there's more to it? A genetic mutation, perhaps? Supernatural heritage? A curse or blessing from some divine entity?" "Just exercise 3 years straight." Aro's smile remained fixed. "I have a gift, you see. I can read every thought, every memory with a single touch. Would you permit me to confirm your story? It would resolve all doubts." Saitama said. "I guess." He extended his hand. Aro took it and saw nothing. His smile vanished. He gripped harder, focused his gift fully, reaching into the void where thoughts should be. Nothing. Not blocked, not shielded, absent. Like touching a recording instead of a consciousness. He released Saitama's hand and stepped back. "Fascinating," he said, his voice slightly strained. "You're empty. Not mentally deficient, but as if your consciousness exists in a frequency I cannot access." "Jano said something similar once," Saitama said. "Something about my power breaking normal limiters. I didn't really get it." "Limiters," Marcus repeated, his interest suddenly engaged. "You're saying there are biological caps on growth that you've broken? Maybe? I just worked out consistently and got really strong." Caius stood abruptly. "This is absurd. Brother, clearly the creature is either lying or delusional. Jane, demonstrate what happens to those who mock the Volturi." "I wouldn't," Dimitri said, quickly. "Master Aro, Jane and Alec's gifts don't affect him at all." The throne room fell silent. "Show me," Aro commanded. Jane focused, channeling her gift at maximum intensity. Saitama stood patiently. "Feel anything?" Aro asked. "Little tingly," Saitama confirmed. Aro's mind raced. 3,000 years of careful power management suddenly confronted with a variable that invalidated their primary control mechanisms. If gifts didn't work, if this creature could simply ignore the twins who made the Volturi untouchable, then what? "Felix," Aro said carefully, "a demonstration of strength, if you please. Show our guest how vampires compare to his exercise regimen." Felix stepped forward, hesitant despite orders. He picked up one of the stone thrones, 800 pounds of carved rock, and lifted it overhead one-handed. "Impressive," Saitama said politely. "Your turn," Aro invited. Saitama looked around, spotted a marble pillar supporting the ceiling, 5 feet wide, 12 feet tall, part of the structure for 800 years. He walked over to it, gripped it with both hands and pulled. The pillar came free. Stone cracked. Dust rained down. The ceiling groaned but held. The architecture had redundancy. Saitama held the pillar overhead, several tons of marble balanced casually. "Like this?" he asked. Every vampire in the room tensed. Arrow's mind worked frantically. This wasn't just strength. This was power that exceeded any vampire, any werewolf, anything in their experience. And it was walking around in a yellow suit, worried about rent. "You could destroy us," Arrow said quietly. "Right now. All of us. This entire structure. You could end 3,000 years of vampire civilization with casual effort." "I mean, probably," Saitama agreed. "But why would I? You guys invited me here." "Why indeed," Arrow said, his voice thoughtful. He glanced at his brothers. Caius looked furious. Marcus, for once, looked interested. "The question becomes," Arrow continued, "what do we do with you? You're not vampire, not bound by our laws, but you exist in our world, interact with our kind, and possess power that could expose us catastrophically if misused." "I'm just trying to find a way home," Saitama said, setting the pillar down gently. "I don't care about vampire politics. And yet you've killed one of us, injured another, and demonstrated that our primary control mechanisms are ineffective against you." Arrow smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Surely you understand our concern." "Not really. I defended myself when attacked. That's pretty normal." "Normal for you, perhaps. Devastating for our social order." Arrow began pacing. "You see, vampire civilization exists because power is predictable. Age brings strength, gifts provide advantage, and the Volturi enforce order through superior capability. But you invalidate all of that. You're a walking revolution." "I just want to go home," Saitama repeated, sounding tired. "And if we helped you?" Arrow asked suddenly. "If we devoted our considerable resources to finding your home dimension, would you in exchange agree to certain limitations while you remain in our world?" Saitama perked up. "You can help me get home? We have access to ancient texts, supernatural researchers, entities with dimensional knowledge. It would take time, but it's possible." "What kind of limitations?" Saitama asked cautiously. "Nothing onerous. Simply agree not to interfere in vampire affairs, not to expose our existence, and most importantly, if conflict arises with our kind, bring it to us for resolution rather than responding with force." "That seems reasonable," Saitama said. Caius spoke urgently in rapid Italian, too fast for most to follow, but Edward had taught Alice the language, and she'd taught the family. He was arguing for execution, for destroying the threat before it grew. Arrow responded in the same language, more patient. "And if we try and fail, if he survives and becomes hostile, better the cooperative creature than the vengeful one." Marcus added his voice, speaking slowly. "He's not lying about wanting to go home. Every vampire I've seen interact with him shows fear. He shows only boredom and mild frustration. He's not a threat unless we make him one." Arrow switched back to English. "My brothers are concerned about precedent. What message does it send if someone can simply be powerful enough to ignore our authority?" "That you should pick your battles better?" Saitama suggested. For a moment, Arrow's mask slipped. A flash of pure fury crossed his face before control reasserted. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. "You're either the wisest creature I've ever met or the most fortunate fool," Arrow said. "Very well. We have an accord. The Volturi will research dimensional travel. You will refrain from vampire conflicts and maintain secrecy. Agreed?" "Sure," Saitama said. "Excellent. Dimitri will return you to Forks. We'll contact you when we have findings." Arrow paused. "One more question. What would you do if we'd chosen hostility, if we'd attacked rather than negotiated?" Saitama's expression didn't change. Defended myself, same as with the other guy. And we would have ended like Laurent? Probably. I don't really have a non-lethal setting for vampires yet. You guys break weird. The casual admission that the entire Volturi guard, perhaps the kings themselves, would simply break under his defense, hung in the ancient air. I'm very glad we chose diplomacy, Aro said quietly. The return flight was quieter. The guard kept their distance and Saitama slept most of the way, snoring softly in his seat. When they landed near Forks, Dimitri escorted him to the forest boundary where the Cullens waited anxiously. He's unharmed, Dimitri assured them. And we've reached an understanding with Master Aro. Saitama will refrain from vampire conflicts and will research his return home. Consider him under Volturi protection. Any vampire who threatens him answers to us. Carlyle's relief was palpable. Thank you, Dimitri. This is a generous resolution. It's a practical one. We're not fools. Dimitri turned to Saitama. We'll be in contact. Try not to kill anyone else in the interim. I'll do my best, Saitama said. The guard departed, vanishing into the early morning mist. The Cullens surrounded Saitama immediately. Are you okay? Carlyle asked. Did they hurt you? Nah, they were fine. Weird castle, lots of talking, but nobody tried to attack after the first few minutes. First few minutes? Edward repeated weakly. Yeah, the torture girl and the sensory deprivation guy tried something. Didn't work, though. Alice laughed, slightly hysterical. He went to Volterra, no-sold Jane and Alec, and came back with a protection deal. That's actually perfect. So I can stay? Saitama asked. Yes, Carlyle said. Though I imagine once they solve the dimensional problem, I'll go home. Yeah. But until then, I guess Forks is okay. Saitama looked around at the forest. Lots of rain, though. You get used to it, Emmett said, grinning despite the tension. Hey, while you're here, want to try arm wrestling? Emmett, no, Rosalie said immediately. I'm just curious. You'll break your arm. That's kind of the point. Saitama shrugged. Sure, I guess, but I should probably get back to the grocery store. I quit yesterday, but maybe they'll rehire me if I explain. He walked toward Forks proper, leaving the Cullens staring after him. So, Jasper said finally, that happened. We need to call everyone, Carlyle decided. Denali, the Amazon Coven, every vampire who's ever been friendly with us. They need to know that Saitama is under Volturi protection and off-limits for feeding or confrontation. What about Victoria? Alice asked. She'll hear the same message. If she's smart, she'll abandon her revenge. If not... Carlyle's face hardened. Then she'll learn why the Volturi chose diplomacy. Edward pulled out his phone, texting Bella. Crisis resolved. Vampire politics. We'll explain later. Coffee? Her response was immediate. You better explain everything. And yes to coffee. Over the following weeks, Forks settled into a new, strange normal. Saitama returned to grocery work, stocking shelves with mechanical efficiency. The Cullens maintained careful surveillance, more protective than threatening now. The Quileute wolves kept their distance, Sam having decided that as long as the bald human stayed off tribal land, he was someone else's problem. Word spread through the vampire world. Don't touch the human in Forks. The Volturi protected him. Laurent was dead. Felix's wrist had been shattered. Jane and Alec's gifts were useless. Most vampires chose discretion. Victoria, watching from the shadows, realized her revenge had slipped through her fingers. She couldn't fight the Cullens with Volturi backing, couldn't use Saitama as a weapon, couldn't do anything except survive and plan for a future that seemed increasingly unlikely. She vanished south, toward Mexico, and legends began spreading among nomads of a red-haired vampire obsessed with impossible vengeance. In Volterra, Aro devoted resources to dimensional research with genuine interest. Not entirely from altruism. Getting the creature back to its home dimension solved the problem permanently. But also from curiosity. What universe produced something so powerful yet so disinterested in power? The answer, he suspected, would be fascinating. One Nisted's rainy afternoon, Edward found Saitama sitting on the hardware store stairs, staring at the sky. "Thinking about home?" Edward asked. "Yeah," Saitama said. "Wonder what Genos is up to. Probably upgraded his arms again. He's always doing that." "We'll get you back," Edward promised. "Arrow's actually trying. It's in everyone's best interest." "I know. It's just weird being somewhere nobody knows who I am. Back home, people recognize the bald cape. Here, I'm just the weird grocery guy." "You're more than that to us," Edward said quietly. "You changed everything. The power balance, the political structure. Even the Volturi treat us differently now because we're the coven who made friends with you first. I didn't do anything, though. Just existed. Sometimes that's enough." Edward stood. "Carlisle wants to invite you to dinner. Well, you'd eat dinner. We'd watch awkwardly, but Esme enjoys cooking and Bella wants to meet you." "The human girlfriend?" "Yeah, she's persistent, wants to understand everything about our world. She knows you're vampires and she's okay with it. She wants to become one eventually. It's complicated." Saitama stood, stretching. "Sure, I'll come to dinner. Beats eating alone." They walked together through the rain, vampire and dimensional anomaly, toward a house full of immortals who'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world was someone who simply wanted to go home. In the throne room of Volterra, Aro stood before a wall of ancient texts, his mind working through dimensional theory that predated vampire civilization. "Master?" Dimitri asked from the doorway. "I believe I've found something," Aro said. "A reference to tears in reality caused by catastrophic force. If Saitama punched through a dimensional barrier, and given what we've witnessed, I believe he could, then the tear might still exist, healing slowly. Can we find it? With the right tools, the right gifts, the right timing, perhaps?" Aro smiled. "And when we do, we'll send our friend home with gratitude and relief. The brief era of the unkillable human will end, and the vampire world can return to its comfortable predictability." "You sound almost disappointed," Dimitri observed. "Perhaps I am. It's been educational, a reminder that power, even ours, has limits." Aro turned from the texts. "But better to learn that lesson peacefully than violently. Send word to the Cullens. We're making progress. Saitama should prepare for eventual departure." Dimitri bowed and left. Aro returned to the texts, but his mind lingered on the human who'd walked into Volterra, no-sold his best weapons and walked out with protection and promises. 3,000 years of civilization, he murmured to the empty room, and a bald man in a yellow suit nearly ended it by accident. He laughed quietly, genuine humor mixing with relief. The Twilight world had survived its brush with true power. Barely. 6 months later, the Volturi's research bore fruit. Alec's sensory gift, combined with an ancient vampire's magnetic sensitivity and Saitama's description of the portal, located a healing dimensional tear in the forests outside Z City. The Cullens gathered to see him off. Carlisle, Esme, Edward, Bella, now engaged, much to Charlie's confusion. Alice, Jasper, Emmett, and Rosalie. Even Sam Yulee and Jacob Black came, representing the Quileute pack in unofficial farewell. "So this is it," Saitama said, standing before the shimmering tear in reality. "You guys figured it out." "Aro's researchers did most of the work," Carlisle said modestly. "We're just glad you'll make it home safely." "Thanks for not trying to kill me," Saitama said. "Most vampires I've met were less friendly. Thank you for not destroying us when we were stupid." Emmett countered, grinning. That arm wrestling match was worth the dislocated shoulder. Bella stepped forward hesitantly. I know we barely talked, but thank you. Edward said you changed things here, made it safer somehow. I just existed, Saitama said. You guys did the actual work. Sometimes existing is enough, Edward repeated his earlier words. Alice hugged him suddenly, quick, impulsive. I still can't see your future. It was driving me crazy, but I'm glad your path crossed ours. Me too, Saitama said. It was interesting. Not exciting exactly, but interesting. He turned to the portal, then paused. If anyone ever needs help with monsters or dimensional stuff, I guess you know where to find me. Z City, Hero Association. Class B, hopefully Class A if I finally pass that test. We'll remember, Carlyle promised. Saitama stepped through the portal and the tear sealed behind him with a sound like thunder in reverse. The supernatural being stood in silence, staring at the space where he'd been. You know what's weird? Jacob said finally. I'm actually going to miss the weird bald guy. He was impossible, Rosalie agreed. Absolutely, completely impossible. And yet, Carlyle said quietly, somehow he fit. A hero in a world of monsters just trying to do his job and go home. Think we'll ever see him again? Emmett asked. Alice's eyes went distant, then refocused with a smile. Maybe. The futures are branching again now that he's gone, but I see potential. Crossroads where our worlds might touch. Good, Edward said. It'd be nice to have backup if things ever got truly catastrophic. They returned to their lives, vampires and wolves, immortals and humans, all of them changed slightly by the presence of someone who'd simply been too powerful to notice he was changing them. In Volturi, Aro removed Saitama's file from active monitoring and filed it under resolved anomalies. But he kept a copy in his personal collection, a reminder that even 3,000 years of accumulated power could be humbled by a being who'd never sought power in the first place. And in Z City, Saitama emerged from the portal, looked around at the familiar destruction from whatever monster attack had occurred while he was gone, and sighed. Guess I missed the fight again, he said. Genos appeared instantly, his upgraded arms glowing. Master, you've returned! I've been searching dimensional tiers for 6 months. Where have you been? Washington. Long story. There were vampires. Vampires? When were they disaster-level threats? What class? A, Saitama said, walking toward his apartment. They were okay. Mostly talked a lot. I need to check if my rent's overdue. Genos followed, frantically taking notes, firing questions that Saitama answered in monotone while thinking about what groceries he needed and whether the sales were still good on kelp. In the Twilight universe, the vampires settled back into their careful secrecy. In the One Punch Man universe, Saitama settled back into his comfortable boredom. And in the space between dimensions, the brief intersection of 2 impossible worlds became legend, whispered among covens, debated by ancient vampires and remembered by a family in Forks who'd befriended the unkillable human and lived to tell the tale. The Volturi maintained their power, but more carefully now. The Cullens maintained their peace, but with greater confidence. And somewhere in both universes, the knowledge lingered. Power alone doesn't determine outcomes. Sometimes the most dangerous being is the one who just wants to be left alone.